Welcome to Chess to Impress. I'm starting a new series. This new series is for intermediate players, anybody in between the range of 1000 to 1400. We'll be going through a lot of new concepts. If you've not seen my series on chess for beginners, please go and watch that. And right now we're going to talk about intermediate stuff. Themes like pins, themes like knight forks, skewers, foundation, back rank, and a lot of other things. So stay tuned in and let's start with chapter number 1. Welcome to Chess to Impress. And the first thing that we're going to talk about in this series of intermediate lessons is pins. A pin in chess is a tactic where you attack a piece and it either cannot move or something bad would happen if it did move. One easy way to find pins is to look for opponent's pieces on the same line and then add your piece in that line too. In this position, the two of your opponent's pieces which are on the same line is the queen and the king. Now once you've identified that, the second thing that you need to do is put another piece on the same line and then see what happens. The only thing that you can do is you can either put your bishop or the rook on the same line. Correct? Now let's see what happens if you put your rook. If you put your rook, nothing really happens because the queen can still go to a lot of places. The queen is not stuck. The entire idea of pinning means to make the piece hang there, make the piece kind of stuck. The piece should not be able to move. But if you play rook b5, even though all these three pieces are on the same line, the queen is still free to move anywhere she'd like to go. So this is not the correct way to pin. The correct way is, since the queen is pinned diagonally with her king, you should use your piece which can pin the queen in the same direction against their king. For example, if you play bishop b5 now, let's just say the queen cannot go and give a check on e6 because if you do that, their king is exposed. Ideally, the queen cannot go in either of these directions, the directions I have just marked, right? All these directions are blocked for the queen because the queen just cannot go there, right? If the queen goes to any one of them, again, it's an illegal move, right? The king will be in direct line of sight. So what they need to do is they kind of need to unpin. For example, if they go like, they play a move like king e7, boom, you just end up winning the queen. For example, they capture your bishop. Okay, cool. Rook captures b5. All right. So the entire idea is to find two pieces of your opponents on the same line and then add your piece to that line too. Right, which kind of makes sense. In this, the rook did not make sense because the queen was free to move. But if you put your bishop, this queen is pinned. The queen cannot go sideways or any of the directions I've just put on the screen. Alright, perfect. Position number 2. Let me just flip the board real quick. We are playing as black. Let's see which two pieces are on the same line. The king and the rook are on the same line, which is they're on the first rank. Another two pieces which are on the same line is the king and the knight. They are on the a5 e1 diagonal. Now the thing is which one we need to pin. By basic idea, by common sense, and just by looking at the position, it is quite evident that the king and the rook cannot be pinned. Right? There's no piece which can travel all the way and pin these two pieces. But as you can see, the king and the knight are like kind of a little bit away from each other. So it can be pinned. They are on a diagonal, and which piece travels diagonally? You're right, it's the bishop. If you move your bishop to a5, the knight is pinned. See that? The knight cannot switch. The knight cannot go to any of these places, or maybe any of the legit squares that it has, or it can go to, because the bishop will then attack the king and you can never leave your king exposed. So you attack the knight. The knight cannot move. Basic instinct. What they do is they protect the knight. Say they were to go play a move like rook to d4, or for that matter, they can even play a move like rook b1. Let's assume they play the move rook b1. Now, the pressure is there, but then you still haven't overpowered that piece, right? The pin still exists. Now, if you were to take the knight, you do not gain anything out of it. You get 3 points, and in return, you lose 3 points. And this is a very symmetrical position, which would result in a draw. So when the pin is still there, what you do is you don't capture the piece, you don't release the tension. In fact, we apply more pressure. So what we need to do is we need to slide the rook from f8 all the way to b8. In simple chess terms, whenever I explain this to kids, I say pp on the pp. Right, it's funny, correct? pp on the pp means putting pressure on the pinned piece. This piece was already pinned. Doesn't make sense to exchange your bishop because you don't gain anything. The piece remains pinned, just pp on the pp. Put pressure on the pinned piece. Right, now there are 2 attackers and only 1 defender, which means we have successfully overpowered this knight. Irrespective of whatever they do, either they move their pawns, they move their rook, they move their king. They cannot move their knight because it's pinned, of course. Let's say whatever they do, whatever move they play, the next move that we're going to play is maybe we're going to chip this knight off with our rook. Maybe we're going to collect the knight with our bishop. Right, so first pin a piece. If the piece still remains in a pin after they make their move, you keep on applying more pressure to a point where you overpower it and then successfully are able to capture it. Alright, position number 3. Let's see. We need to pin a piece. Which 2 pieces are on the same line? The king and the bishop are on the same e-file. Also, the knight and the king are on rank number 5. Now we need to make a decision. We need to come up with something. We cannot pin this because they are kind of like very close to each other. None of the pieces can go behind the bishop at this point of time. So it's quite evident that the knight and the king, which are kind of like a little bit away from each other, like 3 squares away from each other, can be pinned. Of course, you need to put a piece on the same line. These 2 pieces are on the rank 5. You use your queen, move up to rank number 5, which is you slide your queen from a2 to a5. Now this piece is pinned. The knight cannot move. The knight is stuck. They play bishop d7. Why do they play bishop d7? They play bishop d7 in order to protect it. For example, if we were to capture it, they would capture back with the bishop, which we won't do for obvious reasons because the queen is a very valuable piece. What we need to do, we need to apply more pressure, pp on the pp, putting pressure on the pinned piece. So the correct way to apply more pressure is by putting your knight on a safe square, which is to put your knight on c3. Putting more pressure, the knight cannot capture our knight because it's pinned again. Right? So you put knight c3 and whatever they do next, you're just going to capture this knight with our knight because it's overpowered. Again, you cannot put your knight on d4. Even though it puts more pressure, this is not the correct way to apply more pressure because you just lose your knight. Right? It's just a free piece. So make sure whenever you apply more pressure on a piece, you apply it by putting your pieces on safe squares. Put piece on a safe square and then apply pressure. Putting pieces on safe squares and then applying pressure. PP on the PP. And let's say they were to get away from the pin. Yeah, you need to choose the correct piece with which you capture. Right? You have 2 pieces which overpower this knight, only 1 piece which defended. So yeah, you shouldn't take with the queen. You should take with the knight because the queen is the most valuable piece. You will lose it if you go to b5. And once they take, you take with the queen. And this is a completely winning position. Position number 4, super easy. Okay, which 2 pieces are on the same line? I can clearly see that, the rook and the king are on the same line. Correct? And the bishop is also in that very same diagonal. All you need to do is open up the bishop. So you play the move e4. Now the bishop is open. There we go. If they were to capture our pawn, we simply snap off this rook. Bishop captures c3, king captures c3, and then end up taking their bishop as well. So yes, pins are super easy. All we need to do is identify 2 pieces of our opponents on the same line and then put one of our pieces on that very line as well.